Welcome to the UK Travel Planning Podcast. Your host is the founder of the UK Travel Planning website, Tracy Collins. In this podcast, Tracy shares destination guides, travel tips, and itinerary ideas, as well as interviews with a variety of guests who share their knowledge and experience of UK travel to help you plan your perfect UK vacation. Join us as we explore the UK from cosmopolitan cities to quaint villages, from historic castles to beautiful islands, and from the picturesque countryside to seaside towns. Welcome to the UK Travel Planning Podcast. Today we've got a slightly different episode because I'm here today to interview Tracy all about her UK travels at the moment. So Tracy, can you just tell us a little bit about what you're doing at the moment? You've been in the UK for 3 weeks.
It is actually just two. I think it'll be 2 weeks. Oh, is it 3 weeks? You know what? I'm losing track. Is it 3 weeks? It will be 3 weeks tomorrow. Oh my goodness, it's gone so fast. I just want to say thanks, Karen, so much for hosting this episode, because this is really good turning the tables, because obviously you do the intro and you've been on the podcast a few times, so I've kind of landed this on you, but I know you're going to be brilliant at this. So yeah, so I've been back for 3 weeks, arrived on the 11th of April. I've been doing loads of stuff, as people in the Facebook group and on following us on Instagram will kind of know. I did have a few days rest to spend some time with my family, visited a few National Trust properties, joined the National Trust for the next 12 months for me and Doug, so that's really good. Then I, after a few days, went off to Lincoln, which I know is your hometown, Karen.
It is. It's where I grew up, in Lincoln. So yeah, it's really fun having a chat to you today anyway, and being on the other side of the seat. And we've kind of done quite a few episodes together lately. We've done ones where we're chatting together, and ones where you're interviewing me, and ones where I'm interviewing you. So it's kind of fun to catch up and hear all about your UK travels at the moment.
It is. I know it's great to. It is great to chat to you and see you as well. You know, after 3 weeks away. So, obviously Lincoln. I've been to Lincoln before, but it was lovely to go there. And I actually met a friend of mine from Australia, so we spent a few days together.
Your friend from Australia is in Lincoln, yes, at the moment. Happened to be
no, she's actually flown back. She flew back. We met in Lincoln, and then we went on to Cambridge. And then to London, and then actually Lucy flew back on the Tuesday, and I stayed on in London.
And we should start there really quickly that we both now live in Australia, not in the UK.
Yes. So we need to say that, don't we? Yes. We and Lucy also lives in Australia. So, but we're all Brits. So in Cambridge, did a walking tour, which was excellent. So I booked that through Get Your Guide, and what was amazing, there was just me and Lucy on this tour. So we ended up having a private tour of Cambridge, which was fantastic. Which also included King's College Chapel, which I say to everybody, if you're going to Cambridge, you have to go to King's College Chapel. It's so beautiful. It really is. We spent a bit of time in the Eagle pub, quite a lot of time in the Eagle pub, which was really good. Certainly Americans can go in there and see the airmen signed before they flew off to on missions in World War II, the signed ceiling. It's a really interesting pub to go to. So that was really good. Oh, and what was really exciting in Cambridge, and though we didn't get asked to be extras, is they're filming the next series of The Crown.
Wow, I think I saw that in the Facebook group. Lucy shared details about that. That looks so cool.
Oh, it was really good. It was fun watching that. They were setting up though, so we didn't see any stars, I have to say. We then went off to London, and we spent a couple of days in London. We went on the London Eye, we spent time in Covent Garden, and then Lucy went off back to Australia. And then I went and had a photo shoot with Dommy, who's from Scale & Studio, who's our preferred partner for photography in London, which was amazing, in Notting Hill, which is such a beautiful, beautiful place to go.
And those photos were amazing. You look so cool. It was really, really lovely sort of moment in time captured. I love those pictures.
Oh, honestly, I was there's just beautiful photos, and I am going to get a couple of them done for our apartment, because they are lovely. And as you say, they're real. You capture that memory in time at that specific moment, and I'll always remember it. And we had such a good time. I got on so well. Dommy's brilliant as well, because I'm not the most confident person at having photos taken of myself, but she's so good at making you feel relaxed.
I was just going to say, you looked really chilled out and relaxed in them. They look really natural, which I think is really that's a sign of a great photographer, is when they can make someone who's not comfortable in front of the camera look like they are relaxed.
Absolutely. And we just had, now there's one of my favorite photos is just me laughing. And because that's just kind of encapsulated how I was feeling. It was, and there's other people walking past and they look at you and you're like, I don't care because I'm having a really good time. So then the next day, actually, so after a couple of days, the next day I went and met John. So John Coupland from John England Tours, and John took me out on a private day tour of Southeast England. Oh my God, I had the best time. So I'm going to say big thanks to John again for taking me out for that day. The weather was amazing. The company was great. John's so interesting to talk to, and great company, as I say. And he took me to Ightham Moat, which is part of his medieval day tour.
You've learned how to say that. You've learned how to say that since you interviewed him on the podcast a few weeks ago.
Yes, I know. I couldn't say it. I can still spell it, but I have to think about it. But oh my goodness, what an amazing place to visit! Absolutely fantastic, really brilliant. And then we went on to Hever Castle, which has been kind of on my wish list forever and ever and ever, and which also didn't disappoint. And it was great talking to the staff who work there, and they were really interested, really engaged. And obviously, John knows a lot of the people, so he introduced me. It was just brilliant. We had such a fun day. I think John had a lot of fun on that day as well. I mean, he's brilliant. He's a brilliant tour guide. I couldn't have asked for a better day. I really couldn't. I'm going to say to people, if you want to go out with John, get booking, because he is getting booked up, and I'd highly recommend it. I said to him yesterday, I'm secretly plotting the next day out where I want to go on the next one.
I was going to say, it makes such a difference when you have a knowledgeable guide who you get on with, who can show you around and introduce you to people and give you all of the things that you would never have discovered if you'd gone on your own.
Exactly. You really do. You just learn so much more. You can ask questions, you get that personal attention. I didn't have to drive. John drove. He picked me up and drove me, so I could, relax and enjoy the scenery down, in the Weald of Kent, which it was just fun. Honestly, I cannot stress how much I thoroughly enjoyed that day. It was brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And then after that, I had a few days rest because my feet. So I needed a bit of a break. So I came back to my mum's and just put my feet up, and actually had to get on with I had to record a podcast, and I had to do some work. Obviously there's work to be done behind the scenes and stuff. And I'd big thank you and big shout out as well to Donna and Catherine, who are helping out with a Facebook group as well, because trying to moderate that is quite difficult when you're traveling. And obviously Doug's in Australia at the moment, and he's also working, but he's doing a huge amount as well in the Facebook group. So massive shout out to everybody for supporting me with that, because obviously when you're traveling, it's quite difficult to try and manage those things as well. And
it takes a lot more time to manage than you realise when you're not involved in that kind of stuff. It's sort of something you have to be on the go with all the time looking at, don't you?
Yeah, you have to. And, I'm obviously talking to people all the time, answering. I get a lot of emails, and I felt a bit bad because the emails were kind of piling up, but I just had to wait until I had a whole morning to sit and actually answer everybody, which I did. But also I'm trying to be really active on social media. So doing a lot more Instagram stories, which I'm enjoying doing. But again, it takes time out to think about what you're putting on. But I really want people to follow along and see, what I'm doing and where I'm at, and just kind of my day-to-day experiences. So then this last week I've been down in London. I went down Wednesday morning, and I got back Wednesday evening. So I had a full on 3 days in London. So again, when I came back, I've bought myself a foot spa, and I spent about 3 hours with my feet in the foot spa. But I had fantastic V&A Museum, Buckingham Palace. I did a Windsor Castle day trip out with walks. I did a few tours with walks, which were brilliant. One to Windsor Castle, changing of the guard, and also the opening ceremony of the Tower of London, which I highly recommend to everybody. It's really good. Had lunch in Fortnum and Masons, which was really nice, and then another visit to Buckingham Palace. Still haven't met the King, but I've been to Buckingham Palace a few times now.
That's brilliant. And all of this experience helps you give better advice to other people as well. So when people are asking in the group and you're answering questions, you're answering from your personal experience, because I've known you for a while now, and I don't think anyone's as well travelled in the UK as you are, because you seem to do everything. You go back regularly. You've done so many tours. You've done so many trips. I think if ever I mention anywhere in the UK, you've been there already and had some experience.
And I think if there's somewhere I haven't been to, Doug's been. So obviously I know a few people have asked in the group about Doug, and Doug is coming over to the UK. He's going to be over in a few weeks' time, and he's here for a month. And Doug is going to be spending some time in Wales. So he'll be in Wales for about 5 or 6 days, I think, altogether. He's going to be spending a bit of time with me in Edinburgh and in York, and then down in London. And then I think we're hoping to get a day down in Brighton together. So it's just trying to fit as much as we can in. But yes, Doug will be here, and he will be reporting. And I'm actually going to be talking to him. I'll interview him for a podcast all about his trip to Wales. Because obviously there's so much to see. We can't always travel together and fit everything in. So this trip, I'm spending a lot more time in London. So in June, I'll be back in London for 10 days, and I'm doing some food tours again with walks. I'm going to be doing a lot more different tours. I'm also doing the Ted Lasso tour, which I cannot wait for. I love you, Ted Lasso.
I know, that's one of your favourites.
I absolutely adore that series. So I'm so looking forward to that. I'm going to be staying down in Putney, so not too far from Richmond anyway. So kind of, but that's kind of getting ahead of kind of plans that are coming up. But yes, I know a few people have asked about Doug. So yes, Doug is coming.
You haven't left him. Well, you've left him behind for a little while, but not for too long.
For a short time. Yeah, a short time. But it's also been, to be honest, it's actually been really good for me to do a bit of solo travel. Female solo travel is kind of, I think, something that, when we get out there and do that, I used to do it a lot in my 20s, and I've done a little bit in my 30s, but more often than not, I'll be traveling with my daughter or with Doug. So it's actually been quite interesting and quite good to kind of get out my comfort zone again and do that kind of solo travel. The only time I felt slightly uncomfortable, I have to say, was is sometimes eating in the posher restaurants. You feel a little bit more self-conscious when you're on your own, and I probably need to have strategies for that. Maybe have a book. I mean, I've got my phone, but you feel a bit kind of self-conscious sitting on your phone the whole time. But otherwise, it's been actually fine. Absolutely fine.
That's good. I was just going to say, in terms of traveling around, I know, like you, I used to in my 20s all the time travel around the UK on trains at all hours on my own. But how are you getting around now? Are you mainly using trains? Are you hiring cars? Are you using taxis? How are you getting about?
So we're trying actually to avoid hiring a car this trip. I think Doug and I might hire a car maybe for a week in June, but we're not totally sure. But actually we're trying to get around mainly by train, by public transport. I will just interject at this point to say that there are unfortunately going to be some more train strikes coming up, but dates have been announced in May, which is when this podcast will come out. So obviously that we're going to have to, like everybody else, work around that, because we have our plans as well for July. So obviously waiting to find out. We just hope it can get sorted, because it's been a long time now, 12 months. But yeah, so it's something we'll have to take into consideration that may impact plans in May and June and into July. If things don't get sorted. But yes, I have been using the trains. Trains are an excellent way to get around the UK, really fast, getting between kind of London and the Midlands where my mum lives. In London, I've been using an Oyster Card. Again, it's such a controversial one when I talk about this, because some people are so pro using contactless and pro using Oyster Card. I said, everybody use whatever suits you. I happen to like an Oyster Card. That's what I use. So I've used that. You can't obviously use contactless if you want. I've used a bus in London, jumped on the bus to get from Tower of London to St. Paul's on Friday. And I've also taken a black cab to get from Fortnum and Mason to Buckingham Palace, because I realised I came out of Fortnum and Mason and I realised I had 10 minutes to get myself to Buckingham Palace. So I was like, oops, right. So I walked along to the Ritz and then got into a cab that was outside there. So that was really good. It's not too expensive. And it was the easiest way, and also easy on my feet, because I've been walking around a lot that day. So using all sorts of different ways to get around.
Can I just ask around Oyster Cards? Because when we were in London last year, we just used contactless payments and our debit cards and sort of just to get around. We didn't bother with an Oyster Card. But does it expire? So if you have one now and you keep it and you come back again next year, can you just top it back up again and use it next year?
Yeah, you can, absolutely. I mean, I've had my Oyster Card quite a few years now, and I guess that's it. I'm just kind of attached to it, so I just top it up. and just use it. So yeah, she can. And in fact, it doesn't even have to be me who uses it. If somebody else was visiting and they want to use my Oyster card, they could. It's not a problem really. So, I just top it up. I guess that's the advantage with contactless is you don't have to think about topping it up because it's coming out your account. But and I could use both. It's just that I'm so used to I've got my photo ID and my Oyster card in a little wallet, and then I just keep it in my pocket. But it's also because I just need to know where my stuff is. I don't want to get my phone out. I don't want to get my credit card out. There's enough to think about for me anyway. So that's why I just prefer. I mean, I could use my watch. I've got Apple Pay on my watch. It's just, I just find it easier for me. But obviously, again, it's one of those things. Whatever suits you, whatever works for you, is the easiest way to do it. It's just read up about it and make a decision. I think that's the thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've had an Oyster card for I don't know how many years now, quite a long time.
We'll pop a link below because I know you've got some good articles on your site as well about Oyster cards and whether it's the right thing for you, so you can read the pros and cons of it as well. Now, in terms of accommodation, I know you've been staying with your mum here and there in the Midlands.
Yeah.
Like, what other kinds of accommodation have you been staying in? Hotels, B&Bs, Airbnbs?
No, we've been mainly staying in hotel guest houses. So in London, because London's so expensive, I wanted to try out a few different hotels. So at the moment, I've been on the mid-range and budget in London. I stayed in the Z Hotel in Holborn this week, which is towards a more budget side of things, and it was excellent, absolutely excellent. It was, not the hugest room, but perfect for what I needed, absolutely perfect. And I will put some photos of that in the show notes. And then when I was with Lucy, we stayed in the Park Plaza County Hall, which is near Waterloo, which is, again, excellent location. For me, the most important thing is location. So obviously near Holborn is near Covent Garden, Seven Dials. So that's great for theatre, restaurants, lots around there, really good tube links. And then the Park Plaza County Hall is next door to Waterloo. So you've got the London Eye, Westminster very close. So that was kind of the more towards kind of mid-range, upper mid-range. And that was really nice as well. So that included breakfast, which was really nice, which is the Z Hotel. You'd have to pay extra, but there was a Sainsbury's, so opposite. So I just would go and grab something in the morning. And there's plenty of cafes to pick up a coffee or a chai latte if you're me. And then in Lincoln and Cambridge, we basically just stayed at kind of B&Bs, or I can't remember actually, hotels next to the train station in Cambridge, which is important because, we're traveling by train. We didn't want to Lucy had all her luggage with her because she was going back to Australia. So we need to be really conscious of that. And then Lincoln, we stayed right beside the cathedral and the castle, which was perfect, absolutely perfect.
I must say, because obviously Lincoln train station is quite a long way from the castle and cathedral up.
Yes.
And there's a very steep hill in between the two. So if you're going to be staying in Lincoln, unless you really want to I think everyone should do the walk up the hill if they can at one point during the trip to Lincoln. But so you stayed around the cathedral. Yeah,
so got a cab. Oh, yes, got a cab. There's no way we would have walked up there and back. And actually, I will just mention that because about the luggage situation, because obviously Lucy had she had a big suitcase and a medium suitcase, and that was more of an issue when we got into London, actually getting from London Liverpool Street over to Waterloo. Because a few of the lifts weren't working. So that was quite intimidating. I know Lucy I had to help her a couple of times. And in fact, once I left her and got on the escalator down and I just heard, Tracy! Because Lucy was trying to manage these two massive suitcases with escalators, which of course, you shouldn't really do, but if the lifts aren't working. So there was a few occasions where she struggled a bit. So when she left, I actually helped her take one of the suitcases because I didn't have any luggage at that point. But that is something that you've got to consider if you're traveling. Like, if you can, travel as light as possible, because you really do not want to be wheeling 2 or 3 massive suitcases around. It's not a lot of fun, especially on the London Underground. So, we did the tube and we did the experience, but, it's easy, I guess, from Heathrow because you can jump on the Piccadilly line or get onto the Elizabeth line. But we were crossing from Liverpool Street, so I had to do a couple of changes. Maybe a cab would have been better in hindsight because it was quite stressful, I think, for both of us, really. I know Lucy was struggling with the suitcases a bit. But yeah, so accommodation in London we get asked about all the time. The main thing for me with accommodation, yes, is price, because it is expensive. I as a solo female traveler this time, I've stayed in hotels in London. I did look at an apartment in Notting Hill, which I kind of liked the idea of, and I thought, you know what, no, I actually prefer the idea of just staying in a hotel. It just felt safer for me, so I made that decision. So I'd like to stay in one of the luxury hotels next time. So if any of the luxury hotel brands are listening to this podcast, please feel free to reach out.
They can sponsor your next trip.
Absolutely. I'm happy to stay at any of the 5-star accommodation on offer in London. Thank you.
That sounds nice. Can I come with you on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So what have been the highlights so far? I know you've had probably so many and you've only been there for 2 or 3 weeks, but like, what are the highlights so far?
So much, I suppose, really. I have to say, I thoroughly enjoyed the day out with John. That was an absolute highlight. To be able to, I cannot stress how amazing it is having your own tour guide. It is fantastic. It really, really is. So I think that was definitely, it is up there as one of the main highlights of the trip so far. I loved my photo shoot with Domi of Scale in Studio, because it's just so lovely. And the photos, I don't think I'm particularly photogenic, but she does an amazing job. Because, they're lovely photos. Like, even I'm saying that, which sounds a bit vain, but anyway, but they are lovely.
Well, they are. They're really lovely pictures. They really, like, you can see your joy from being there in the location. It's really lovely to see.
Oh, yeah. It's perfect location. I know Dommy wants to take some more, so hopefully I'll have some more with maybe dresses on, because I had to dress in warmly because it was a bit chilly that day in Notting Hill. But hopefully have some nice dresses on and take some pictures in Westminster next time with Dommy. So that was amazing. She's always a joy to spend time with as well. She's an amazing woman and incredibly inspirational. And then just the tours. I've had some wonderful tours with Walks as well, who've invited me along onto some of their tours. And again, small group tours. Brilliant, all organised. Again, you learn so much more. I haven't got the time to do. I'd love to be able to know everything, but I can't. There's just too much to know about the history and about all the, everything about everywhere in the UK. I can't know absolutely everything. So it's wonderful you go on a tour with someone who knows that area or that attraction or that castle or that house or, changing the guard or whatever. They know all the intimate details and all the things that you may not know. They know, so they can give you amazing tips and you learn things from them. So that's been absolutely fantastic. I will also say something that really personal that I was really, really wanting to do is that I've been to Windsor Castle quite a few times, and I did a walks tour on Thursday with them, which was amazing. It was brilliant transport from London, and we had a fantastic guide. So shout out to Julia. But also it was just so lovely to go and see where the Queen's been laid to rest. Just to pay my respects. I just felt that was, it was something important and very personal, I think, that I just wanted to do. So that actually meant quite a lot to be able to do that. It was lovely. I have to say, it was really lovely. And there was a lot of people, obviously queuing up to do that, though even, I think it was quite quiet saying that in Windsor on Thursday. Then I've also been able to spend as much time as I want in the V&A Museum because Doug isn't with me to say enough, because I love it. I honestly could go every day, and there's so much to see there. It's a beautiful museum. It's such an interesting museum. There's so many. Oh, it really is fabulous. I can't stress to people enough. Go and visit the V&A.
That's the thing with the museums in London, is they're enormous, and you can spend many days in almost any of them. But we love the Natural History Museum and could just go back again and again and again.
Oh, I've been there so many times. You know what? And I had planned to go from the V&A to the Natural History Museum, but I just couldn't drag myself out of the V&A. I just couldn't. I was absolutely, you know what? I could spend hours in the cast courts alone. And if you don't know what the cast courts are, you'll have to look up in the show notes and have the link. But I just find them fascinating. It's amazing. Oh, it's a fantastic museum. I really.
And it wasn't just because you were too cold, because I think you mentioned that on Facebook, that it was cold and you were trying to decide where to go.
Well, it was really interesting that because that was Wednesday, wasn't it? Actually, yeah. And I'd had the changing of the guard in the morning, and that finished about 11:15, 11:30. And I was like, well, I've got the whole rest of the day, but it was freezing. And my intention, I had two choices. One was to go to Hampton Court Palace because there was a tulip festival on, and I really wanted to go and see the tulips. And the other was the V&A. So two kind of favourite things that I wanted to do. And it was cold. So so the V&A won over, but it was a fantastic place to spend a day when it's not particularly very warm or when it's raining in London. And just spend a time in the cafe because it's so pretty was lovely as well. Another highlight was actually the Cambridge tour that I did. We had Sonia, who was our guide there, who was also fantastic. So shout out to Sonia, who I booked through Get Your Guide. Fantastic walking tour. We were just very lucky that there was just me and Lucy on that tour that day. Very knowledgeable, took us around Cambridge. Now, I did a tour last year as well, but I still learned more this year. There's always stuff to learn. And another highlight, just the last one I guess I'll bring up, was a Buckingham Palace. Now, I got an email from, I think, Royal Palaces in February say that they had some slots for the small group tours in April. I did kind of bulk a bit at the price because it was 90 quid. So I was a bit like, ooh. But you know what? It was worth every penny. Fantastic. It was so lovely. And I was back at Buckingham Palace on Friday to do a tour of the Mews. And I actually bumped into the tour guide that took us, and I was just telling her it was fantastic. You can't take any photos. That's the only thing but I understand. But it was just amazing to see these places that, seeing the Queen wandering around at, and you just, you know what I mean? You're just seeing people in these places all the time, the royal family, and you're like, oh my goodness, I'm standing in this particular spot. Yeah, so that was really, really interesting.
And also you've become a bit of a celebrity because people are spotting you while you're around and about.
Oh yeah, it has been lovely. It's been so nice to kind of have a few people from the group who've spotted me in London have come up and said hello. So that it's been so big hi to Berna, Jocelyn, and Robbie, who I kind of had arranged to meet up with. But yeah, it's so lovely, and I keep saying to people, like, if you see me around anywhere in the UK or Doug, if you see either of us around in the UK, I guess London will probably be the typical place that you potentially will spot us. Is come and say hello. Come and say. We love it. It's just so nice to find out where you're from, what you're doing, how you're enjoying your trip, and just to meet you, really. So so please come and say hello and have a selfie.
It has to be done. It's the law.
Yeah, no, it's really good fun.
Cool. And I know that we've had a podcast together chatting about our favourite British foods. How are you getting on with all the food at the moment on this trip? Is there any favourites? Have you been eating one particular meal? What have you been doing with the food?
Well, I am trying to be a little bit careful because I think if I eat any more Marks and Spencer's cherry cake, which happens to be my ultimate favourite, I don't think my jeans will fit, even with all the walking I'm doing. So I'm trying to hold back on that. But yes, Marks and Spencer's cherry cake is my absolute favourite when it comes to with a cup of tea. But I've been having some beautiful roast dinners. Big shout out to my friend Linda, who I went to stay with for a couple of days, who did a fantastic Sunday roast, which Doug's very jealous of, but he'll be able to go and visit and have his own Sunday roast soon. And then my mum has been absolutely spoiling me with my two favourite meals, which are gammon steak.
Scampi and gammon, I'm sure.
Scampi and gammon, yes. Scampi one night, gammon steak the next. I love both of those. I can never, honestly, I literally could eat them alternate days for the rest of my life and not get sick. I just love them. I've had a great time just wandering around Marks and Spencer's. I've been taking lots of photographs of the different foods and stuff that you can get in lots of the different shops, but particularly Marks and Spencer's because I guess that's my favorite. And I've been sampling some of the meal deals, and I have to just shout out for Marks and Spencer's. Their brand new, I think it's like the best ever or whatever, prawn sandwich. Oh my goodness. It is delicious. Seriously delicious. I've had quite a number of those now as well. Because the meal deals are brilliant. So if you want to know about meal deals and how they can help your budget when you're over here, you can listen to that earlier podcast where we talk about British food, but also we'll put the links in the show notes, won't we, Karen?
Yes, we will. And yeah, I really miss the Marks and Spencer's sort of evening dinner meal deals that you could get for two.
Yes.
So especially when we had young kids, it was really handy to have like a nice gourmet dinner for two that you could just pop in the oven and have with a bottle of wine, and that was really lovely.
That's really cool. I can hear your little dog barking in the background.
It's so cute. He's just come back from a dog walk.
Oh, no, it's very cute. Nobody's going to mind. Everybody's going to love hearing little dog. What's he called again?
Lorenzo.
Lorenzo. A little chihuahua, isn't he?
A little chihuahua, but he's got a very big bark.
Yeah, well, that's typical. I used to have a dachshund, little dog, big attitude, I would say. Yeah, so the food, the meal deals have been excellent. There's just so much on offer, and I've also taken photos of the dinner options as well that you can get. They're just good value, and if you're staying in a VRBO or you're staying in an Airbnb, they're an excellent option for the evening if you can just go and buy yourself, I think that I can't remember, it's like a starter and a main course and a dessert for I'm guessing, I can't remember the price, like 12 quid or something like that, £12.
So when it comes to packing, how did you get on with your packing? I know that you were saying that when you were trying to get all your cases ready, you were a little bit overweight with your cases, and that was quite a stressful experience. Was there anything that you haven't brought with you that you wish you had, or anything that you brought with you that you thought you shouldn't have brought? How's the whole experience of packing for the UK?
Well, it was a bit of a nightmare because obviously coming over for 12 weeks, you tend to want to pack a little bit more. And also because I'm spending time in Greece where it's going to be warmer. So I needed some kind of warmer, some summer clothes. So I'd overpacked, and at the airport, I'd overpacked my hand luggage by a few kgs, and I was made to unpack that and try and fit that in my suitcase. But obviously my suitcase was fully packed. So thank goodness Doug was with me. So he just had to take some things home, so he'll bring them over with him. But unfortunately, the presents got kicked out. So the suitcase. So I've not arrived with any presents. So in terms of what I didn't bring, I think gloves have been the one thing that I was saying to Doug, I should have brought some gloves. So he's like, pop to Primark and buy yourself some. But I'm hoping it's warmed up now. So that was the only thing, I guess, was more. I guess I brought plenty of scarves, so I've used those. It has been a little bit colder than I expected, to be honest, and they have had some quite chilly weather, though hopefully it's warmed up now, but they're saying it's going to get colder again at the end of the week. So probably, I guess the thing for me is I have a lot of tech. So I've got my laptop, I've got my iPad, I've got, video stuff, which weighs quite a bit. So that I couldn't kick that out of my suitcase. So, but yeah, it was very stressful. It's the first time I've ever had to take everything out and repack it in front of everybody. So it was actually a really unpleasant way to start a flight, actually. And I got really hot and bothered about it all. But otherwise, since I've been here, I did buy myself a brand new small carry-on, which is a really good size. But obviously, I'd still overpacked it because I was about 4 kgs over, and they were being very strict on the flight, which is fair enough. I kind of, I was over. But yeah, otherwise I've been fine. I mean, I've been looking, because obviously I'm staying with my mum, so I can get washing done. So that's fine. But there are some really good shops in the UK to go shopping.
And I'm sure Doug's case will come home full of Marmite later on.
Oh yes, it will. Absolutely. Well, I must admit, I've so far bought myself, I think, one pair of crop trousers from Marks and Spencer, a green pair that are really pretty. But I'm trying to avoid buying too much when I'm here, because I know last time I ended up having to send an extra suitcase at $700 back. So, but it's hard, in travel for 12 weeks. It's when you're doing 2 or 3 weeks, I can manage with carry on with the best of them, and I will go into Greece with carry on. But yeah, when you've got 12 weeks, it's a lot harder to actually, and especially when it's crossing over seasons.
Yes. We should just say that you're hopping over to Greece for a little bit for a travel conference, a travel blogging conference in between your trip, aren't you?
I am, yes. I'll just be away for 2 weeks. So I'm going away this Friday the 5th. So actually this will be after the podcast comes out, before the podcast comes out, because it'll come out on the 9th. So I'm away from the 5th to the 19th in Greece for that, which I'm really looking forward to. But I will be back in the UK on the 19th. Unfortunately, missing the coronation. I did ask the king, but he wouldn't change it. Well, I didn't ask the king really, but you know what I mean. I thought about asking the king, but I knew he wouldn't change it. So unfortunately I'm going to miss it. But obviously I've been in London for on and off the last couple of weeks, and it's extremely busy. There has been an impact, obviously, because of the preparations for the coronation. So around Buckingham Palace at the moment, it's pretty much chaos, with the setting up. I don't know what you want to call them, seating arrangements, and obviously barriers. There's places that are shut that, you can't get into to see because of preparations. I think Westminster Abbey is now shut. Tower of London, the crown jewels, I went in on Friday, and the majority of the crown jewels have all been moved from there now. Even at Windsor now I don't know if this had anything to do with the coronation, but I was in Windsor on Thursday, and 15 minutes before the changing of the guard was due to take place, it was cancelled, because they're all practicing throughout the night. So they're doing a lot of practices throughout the evening and throughout the night when it's quiet. Oh, and I just have to tell you this, because there's a couple of really interesting things. So I was in Buckingham Palace, and and I can't remember the name of the room, and I should. They've actually got like a mock-up of Westminster Abbey where the King and Queen are practicing the ceremony.
Wow.
Which I thought was really interesting, because obviously you don't want to get it wrong, do you? I mean, you're going to be in front of how many billions of people, I guess. So yes, apparently they're practicing that at the moment. And also, yes, I went to see the royal carriages in the Royal Mews on Friday. So that was really interesting, just talking to people there about the preparations that they're making for the Golden State carriage, which is, it's a bit over the top, I have to say, because gold, and the Jubilee carriage. But it was fascinating to see those. So I'll put some photos in the show notes again there. But yes, so everybody all the people who are involved, there's so much going on, so much behind the scenes of getting all the things prepared, whether it's changing, apparently the crown has obviously got to be resized, the new crown for Queen Consort, Queen Camilla, that's being changed. I think she's having Queen Mary's crown. I hope I got that right. So there's all those things to take place. And then just like the ceremony, who's involved in it and practicing it. And then obviously, preparing all of the buildings for all the people that are going to be there, because there's going to be lots of people from around the world. What was really nice is the bunting has gone up, so the Union Jacks have gone up again on Regent Street, Bond Street, so that's lovely to see. But it's chaos. I mean, I left Buckingham Palace on Friday, and I was planning to walk through Green Park to get to the tube station, and the way that I was going to go the quickest is all shut off now. So I don't know if that's because they've got stuff set up for the different news people from around the world. So I had to go the long way around, which my feet did not thank me for. But so it's busy. There's a real excitement. There's a real sense of excitement. There's so much there's so much on the shops are all decorated. There's a lot of, memorabilia, lots of things, that beautiful memorabilia that's come out, to celebrate the coronation. So yeah, it'll be exciting, but it will be very busy in London.
Yes. It reminds me of when we were there last year, and the Queen passed away on the day we just landed in the UK. And then a few days later, we went to London, and there was so many changes. The roads were blocked off in all kinds of places, and you just got to be prepared for a lot of changes. Yes. So we went to Harry Potter Studios and came back on the bus, and the bus couldn't get to Victoria because all the roads were blocked off. So we had to get dropped off somewhere else, and then we had to try to navigate which tube stations had been closed off as well. So not all the tube stations were open. So we had to kind of figure out a way to get across London with all of these changes. And we did a hop on, hop off bus tour as well. And some of the roads for that were closed. So they had to take detours. And so I think it's just, if you're visiting at the moment, just be prepared that there will be a lot of changes going on.
Absolutely. Like you just can't, hopefully, obviously after the coronation it will settle down, but there's such a lot going on, because this is a huge event. It's the first time in 70 odd years that we've had a coronation. So 70 years. So it's going to be, so it's just a lot. A lot of people are doing a lot of work. There's a lot of preparation to make sure that it's perfect, basically. Which I'm sure it will be. But yes, I'm a bit sad that I'm not here when it's on. I was trying desperately to stay in the country, but as I say, unfortunately, I've got to get myself over to Athens.
It's probably better to watch it on a screen somewhere anyway, because it'll be good fun wherever you watch it, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. That's true.
So in terms of how much money you've been spending while you've been around. Have you been taking cash with you? Have you been paying mostly by card? I know you have a cash challenge that you've been doing where you've taken out a certain amount of cash that you're trying to see how long it lasts you. How have you been getting on with that?
Yeah, well, I decided to do this because this is another, there's kind of some emotive topics that come up in the Facebook group where you kind of want to jump in because people have very strong opinions. It's a bit like the Oyster Card versus contactless thing. People have very strong opinions and that's it. And the same when it comes to cash or contactless, and no, you don't need any cash whatsoever. You can only just use contactless. So I actually wanted to do the cash challenge. So I took out £60 when I first arrived to see exactly how much, if anything, I would need. And so far, I've had to use it 3 times. And, the last time I have to say was the 18th of April. So I haven't had to use it for like 12 days, whatever. But that first week, I ended up paying cash to the taxi driver in Lincoln because the machine didn't work. So I needed to use, I use Apple Pay. It's on my phone. I don't carry my cards around. I use that. So I had to use cash then. I used it to tip the guide in Cambridge. Gave her a tip. And obviously any other tips for guides that I'm keeping it for. And then, what was the last time? I'm trying to think what the last thing. Oh yes, Covent Garden. I wanted to buy a scarf for the photo shoot with Union Jacks on. So I got my on a scarf at Covent Garden and it was £6 and I had to pay cash. There was no other option. So I guess, those are the 3 times that I've used it. Obviously bearing in mind, if you want to give tips that restaurants already added 12 on, most restaurants are add a charge on. In London, I've noticed that 12.5%. So I haven't been leaving tips, but if you want to leave a tip, obviously you're going to need to have cash and obviously pounds. So I've got £36.50 left. So, you need to have some cash, and that's something that Doug and I will say. And that's been in Lincoln, Cambridge and London. So 3 occasions I've had to use that cash. So have some cash on you. If you have £50 on you, that's, it's not a huge amount of money, but at least you've got some. But again, I get a lot of people on the Facebook go, no, you don't need any cash at all. Well, I beg to differ. And also really interesting as well, Sally Ann, who's been on the podcast a few times, who's got her private tour company in far north Scotland. She also says the point, and she's absolutely right. Said, you can go to some of these places and there are the cash thing doesn't work, so the machine's down. So how are you going to pay? So you really need to think about that sort of thing and have, just have the provision to have some cash with you.
Yeah, well, it's always a good idea to have some in your pocket just in case you need it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you going to be going back to London again now or before the coronation, or is this it now? Have you been and done your London things?
No, I'm actually back in London on Wednesday. I've been invited to an event by Merlin at Madame Tussauds on Wednesday night. So I'll be going there Wednesday. I may go Wednesday afternoon. I may go into the British Museum if I feel. We'll see where I'm at, because not the British Museum, sorry, the British Library. But we'll see. Otherwise, I'll just go to Madame Tussauds on Wednesday night. But I'm planning to not go in London into London apart from that, and that's quite easy because I get into Marylebone Station, and Madame Tussauds is very, very close there. So I don't actually have to go further into London. So that's the plans really, until I'm not going to be back in London until June. But I've got 10 days in London in June, and I'm going to be doing lots of tours, visiting lots of places. I will be spending a day in Greenwich. I will be going down to Hampton Court. I'm going to be spending some time going around the markets. I was at Portobello Market a couple of weeks ago, but I'll be going to Camden Market. So lots of places that I want to explore a bit more of. I'm going to do a food tour of Borough Market. I'm doing a historic pubs tour as well, so they're with walks. So I'm really excited to do those. But in between that time from when I get back from Greece, I'm looking at spending some time in Oxford. I'll also be meeting Victoria from Cotswold Teacup Tours. I'll be meeting her in the Cotswolds. So I'm really looking forward to seeing Victoria. I'm trying to think what else I've got. I'll be in Edinburgh for a short time. I'll be in Northumberland, so I'll be seeing Mark from Northumberland Tours. It'll be lovely to see Mark. And then I'll be down in York, and I'll be meeting up with Sinead, who was in podcast episode 3, all about visiting York. So I'll be seeing Sinead there, spending 3 days in York. And then hopefully Brighton, and then some more time with Doug in London before I then head off to Paris. I'm going to Paris as well for a day trip. I'm hoping to do 2. At the moment, I've booked the luxury one, so the champagne tour to Paris for the day. So I'll be doing that, and that's actually on the day of the Trooping of the Colour. So Doug will be in London to report on that. So if you want to know about the Trooping of the Colour, you have to check out the show notes. But that's another main event in the royal calendar, a lot of pomp and ceremony that day.
Wow. So you've got a lot left to cram in. So when is it you're going to be leaving the UK to come back to Australia?
Not until the first week in July. I'm actually going to be in Bath for a few days because it's my mum's 80th birthday this year.
Oh.
Yeah, so I've treated her to a very nice hotel in Bath for 3 days. So I'll be there first few days in July and then fly back. It's my daughter's graduation for a PhD, so I'll be back to see her become Dr. McConaughey. So, yeah, so that's going to be a lot of fun. So not until, I think, about the 7th of July, something like that, I'm back.
Wow. So you've got loads left to cram in and loads of fun left to experience. And I'm sure we'll be doing another recap, or you'll be doing another recap later on to tell us about the rest of your trip. But I think that's really covered all of the things we wanted to chat about, to look at your first 2 or 3 weeks in the UK.
Yep.
So that wraps up episode 45. So you'll find the show notes today at uktravelplanning.com/episode 45. And thank you today, Tracy, for telling us all about your travels.
Well, thanks so much to Karen for coming on and agreeing to interview me. I've turned the tables on her today because normally I'm the one that does it. So I hope you had a lot of fun doing this, Karen. And I just want to say to everybody as well, say thanks so much to Karen. Thanks everybody for listening. Hope you enjoyed the episode. I will be doing some more updates, and I have got some trip reports with some people who are actually in the UK at the moment traveling around. So hopefully I'll get those recorded and out in June. But for this week, that just leaves me to say happy UK travel planning. Oh, yeah, thanks, Karen. Cheers. Bye, everybody.
Bye.